So tonight, I want to talk a little bit about communications. And I know we've talked probably ad nauseum about ham radio and get your license and all of that. I'm still going to say it, get your licenses if you can.
Yeah, we got it.
It will help out. But there's more to it in any situation. So, I mean, it could be EMP, it could be tornado, blizzard, whatever it is. So today I want to go over different ways to get information. Because getting information sometimes is even more important than being able to communicate. I mean, if you can do both, that's great, but it's not always the ideal situation. So, I'll start off first with ham radio, just a little bit. We all know about it. If you look in the handout, I've broken it down, and there's a couple other operators here. For our purposes, I did 2 meter, the UHF, VHF, short distance communication, because the way we're doing it with simplex communications is typically line of sight. So, you're gonna have a hard time communicating. I mean, we've done some tests where I've been able to get to Martin, and I'm able to get to Craig now, but it's not feasible for all of us to be able to talk together. So the simplex, the short communication, will be great for when we go on our hikes in the woods, or say, hey, we're all together at some place and we need some form of comms. So the short UHF, VHF will work fine, 2 meter communications. We're actually using it on the way up today. We're talking simplex on the National Call Channel, just going back and forth. And Larry?
Mike, I'm sorry.
Mike, Craig and I are talking, and Mike chimed in and said hi. He says, oh, hey, I'm just pulling in behind you guys. So worked out well. For long distance, which would be great for all of us, and I don't think anybody here is a general class yet, I know I'm studying for mine, it would be HF. So you have a lot more privilege, you have a lot more distance. So for an example, as a technician class license, you have some HF privileges. There's CW, radio teletype, I believe, and 10 meter. And I've been doing 10 meter a lot because I've got the privilege, and I've talked all over the world, like in South America, Europe, West Coast. So it's there, you can do it. But if you get your license and get even more privileges, you can use higher power, and there's better ways to communicate on the higher bands. The higher bands are more susceptible to longer communications. So that would be the way to go, and that's what I'm hopefully going to do in the next few months. So with any of this, the big debate is, do I get a license or not? My suggestion is yes, because by getting a license, we could put together a net like we're trying to do. We can talk, and it'll just give you the way to operate a radio. Because even in a grid down situation, people are going to yell, get on the radio and talk to each other, but there is a certain protocol and process that should be used. So, I mean, it costs you $15. Honestly, if you want to get on the air, it'll cost you $15 for a license. You're talking $30 for a radio, cheaper in some cases. And there you go, you've got a 2 meter radio. You want a little bit more range, you get a magnetic mount antenna, throw it on your car. You can talk everywhere, using repeaters. So it's really cheap money for what you're doing.
What's the general? That's 15 too, like an addition?
Yeah. And when you go, if you go for your technician and you pass, they'll say, would you like to take your general? And you can take your general.
Rich did.
Yeah, at the same time. I did the same thing, and I missed it by a few questions. And if you pass that, I think you can go for your extra. You can get all 3 at once. So for $15, if you do all the studying, you can get all 3 licenses. So again, technician's the entry level, but you got enough privileges to talk, and I mean, in a small community like, like this, like North Brookfield, it'd be pretty good to have, especially if it was repeater based. So that's all I'm going to say on ham radio. I mean, I think it's pretty good to get it if you can. I put some frequencies of the privileges on page 2 here, as well as a bunch of resources on where you can study for the test. And I studied online, and a lot of it was memorization. When you get into some of the more advanced licenses, there's a lot more theory as far as electrical theory and stuff like that. I think it was geared more towards folks in the old day when they were building their own radios. but they haven't relaxed that. The only thing they've relaxed in the past 10 years or so is the CW. You used to have to do Morse code to get your license previously. All right. So, what else do we have? Page 3 is some testing resources, the equipment that I've talked about. And I gave you some links to, you know, where you can buy the equipment. These are all over Amazon. This is an entry-level radio. It's actually pretty good. They're durable. This is a little more expensive. This is a Yaesu. It's an FT60, and this will go about $150. But it's built tough. I put a diamond antenna on it. The diamond antenna is about $30, but it really makes a difference from the stock antenna. And it's the same thing with the Bofang. It comes with a short antenna, but I think this one was, I want to say $8 on Amazon.
Yeah, I would say.
And, I mean, it really makes a difference. You got one, right?
Yeah, it does make a difference.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
I just turned mine on, I listen to FM 102.
Yep.
It's just the only thing I know how to do on it, but I turn it on with the other radio. I had to be in the right area, I put on the new antenna that Tori picked up, and things that go everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, that's half your battle. I mean, antenna height is great. I mean, with 5 watts, you can talk, theoretically, you could talk around the world with 5 watts, but it depends on the height of your antenna and your location.
Now, what if I put one on my bucket? We were talking before.
Yeah, I mean, you get your bucket way up. I mean, our biggest obstacle here are the hills. And we tested it the other day because we just put a new radio in Craig's new truck. And before, I wouldn't be able to talk to him on my base to him. But we've got something with a little more power. And of course, if you get a nice mag mount antenna and you put it on the center of your roof, that's going to work out great because the top of your car works as the ground plane for that. And we were able to talk. What do you say? It's about 5 miles between our houses.
Yeah, give or take.
And there's a couple of dips. There's the valley down by the Spencer Center. We were able to talk with a little bit of, garbage, but
Big elevation difference too.
Yeah,
About
big elevation
300 feet
difference.
higher.
Yeah, because you and Rich couldn't communicate, right? You said-
no,
yeah.
not yet. And we're going to try once Rich puts in put an
antenna.
antenna in there. And that's another one thing. This is the perfect antenna. And I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I just wanted to bring it to show everyone. But these are the antennas that you could put in your bug out bag, or you can even use it at home. I've even used it at home. And it's a J-pole antenna, and it just rolls up. So you take this end, throw it up in a tree, and you plug this end into your handheld, and you get, the increase in distance.
Now, how long can that, could you get a longer cord for that? Or would that
Well,
draw
you
from
could
your
put a
radio?
longer,
Because of-
coax on it, yeah.
Would that start drawing your battery down quicker, do you?
No, I don't think it's gonna make that much of a difference, because you're only, talking 4 or 5 watts of power. But of course, the longer the coax, the more RF and then radio frequency is lost. So, but 2 meters are pretty good. I mean, I've got a 50-foot run on mine at home up to my J-pole, and, I really don't have any loss. And, I can ping the Mount Greylock repeater from my house, so, that's pretty darn good. But something like this, eBay, $20. And like I said, you can roll this up. I mean, you can throw in the ball. I mean, it's ladder line is very good wire. So we'll take a look at that later. So other ways to communicate would be Citizens Band Radio. It's an oldie but a goodie, and it actually works fairly well. Again, it's line of sight for the most part, but we're talking 4 watts of power tops, and if you get some of the radios from the old days, people would bump the power up. I don't think the FCC really monitors CB as much as they used to anymore, but I mean, in a situation where there's no law or anything like that, it's really not gonna make a difference. But I mean, you can put it in the car, same thing like the ham radio,
Yeah,
it'll
we used
work.
to use them all the time.
Yeah, and some of them, if you get the sideband ones, where you have upper and lower sideband, you get a decent enough antenna, and you can skip and talk, all over the country. I mean, the thing with talking with the HF, for the most part, you're going to talk further distances. So, it's a lot harder for me to sit here in North Brookfield and talk to somebody on HF, say, at the other end of the state. I mean, it's a little bit harder because the signals are bouncing and, you know, they're bouncing so far off the, you know, the atmosphere. So, you know, that's one thing to think about. I actually did make a contact. I was on 10 meters and I made a contact with a guy about 5 miles down the road. The guy owns Master Hobbies. So we're both on 28,400. And, you know, I heard him in there and I was talking to a guy in Illinois and I tried to get him and sure enough I got him, but the conditions were just right. Doesn't always happen. You know, so if you look at my map of contacts, you'll see it's all fairly blank around, you know, the New England states. But, you know, I'll hit Texas, North Carolina, or everything like that. So, again, CB radio is an option, you know, especially if, you know, they're cheap, and probably everyone has one in their garage somewhere. I mean, I think I have 1 or 2 at home that, God knows I haven't used in years, but fire them up on a 12-volt system, and you'll probably be all right. More short-term, short-range communication, FRS, GRMS. Again, those are the walkie-talkies you get at Cabela's. You know, they say, oh, 35 miles, yeah, or 50 miles, 75 miles. Well,
Yeah.
again,
Down
line of
south,
sight.
maybe.
Yeah, line of sight. The problem we have here is our terrain. So, I mean, if we're out west,
Yeah, you know.
you know, where you can see for miles, you know, you're gonna get a lot better. But for here, no. I mean, it'd be great for, you know, camping. You're at a campground, or, you know, say we all bugged out to one location. I mean, we could use the different channels and communicate. It's short-term, short-range communication. But these radios have them. Not all radios do, but both things have them. Yeah. I'm not sure if the Waxons have them or not.
Waxon does, TYT does, Buxton does.
All right, but I mean, again, for 35 bucks, 30 bucks, you get a radio with, you know, 3 bands that you can communicate on.
It'd be nice if the Bell things, if they had a decent little book. You know, I mean, like you said, we're gonna have to make up our own and learn how to program them and
Well-
switch between channels, because those little books they give you aren't good for crap.
No, they're not, and I don't know if I have it with me here, but I know we talked about this last week in your presentation. This is the repeater directory,
Oh, yeah.
and I mean, I think this was 12 bucks. Now, it's a 2013, 2014, I don't know how much they change, but honestly, as long as I've been a ham, I haven't seen too many
Get rid
repeaters
of
change.
Amazon?
What's that?
Get it right from Amazon or something?
Yeah, right off of Amazon, and perfect to have in your bag. I mean, it's got all, so if you're traveling, we went up to Vermont for a vacation, my wife and I, so, you know, I brought that, and I brought this, plugged in a couple of frequencies, and I was talking on the local repeater. So that's something you may want to pick up. Again, when I have my radios, I always try to keep the manuals with them, and this is a perfect example. This is the manual for the Bofang, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
But if you do your research online, there's a lot of folks that, you know, put stuff together.
Yeah, you can probably go on YouTube or something.
Yeah, and you can download some. I don't think I have it with me today, but typically what I'll do with the radios, because every radio is different when you're dealing with these radios, so in order to program this one, I need a cable, which is different from that cable, which is different from the one in the car. So what I try to do is I make cheat sheets, and you can find them online. Like, I've looked one up for the FD60 because I carry this everywhere, and so I'll be able to program it in, because I don't remember how to program it. You know, I'm not programming it every day. So I have it, I laminated it, and I think it's in my bag. And I can pull that out, program it whenever I need to. So that's something you may want to do as well. So those are kind of ways that we can communicate with each other when everything's operating. I mean, you still have stuff like Zello, and you have text and cell phone, but that may not always be available. These give you some alternatives. So say you don't have a license, say you don't have one of these, say something happens, how are you gonna get the information? Well, I think the first thing I would turn to is an AM radio. Like, I keep a crank AM radio, like the one you had in your bag. I think it was you or Lisa had one in your bag
That was Lisa's.
last week. And that's perfect, you know, you wrap it up. I like the idea your dad had, the little metal box. And you can crank it up and get information. Also, for about $50, I picked this up off of Amazon. And this is a shortwave radio. And it's great. I mean, it's small, it's compact, it runs on 3 AA batteries, but I can pull in stations all over the world with this thing. And
Is
so
it just a receiver or?
just a receiver. That's all you
Like
get.
a scanner, right?
What's that?
Just like having a scanner?
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, you'll get stations like, say, Radio Beijing or Voice of America, stuff like that. So, you know, you can find out, this would be a good tool to find out what's going on in a disaster overseas. Because you're always gonna be able to hit something like the BBC. I mean, I've listened to shortwave radio probably for about 30 years. And Radio Moscow, Radio Cuba, I've gotten verification reports from a lot of those back in the day when you actually had to handwrite them and mail them. Nowadays, everything's on the internet. But what's nice about that is it's small, it's compact, it runs on 3 AA batteries. You throw that in your bag, and you know, you've got information, you have that at the house, you have information. Now, of course, I mean, if it's an EMP and it's in your bag in the car, it's not shielded, well, you're out of luck. I don't know if that's gonna be the downfall. I think it's probably gonna be something else. But anyways, it's cheap money and it's a great little radio. Also with that radio, you talking about antennas, we can extend the range on any of our radios with different types of antennas. So, for example, I've got 2 different shortwave radios here that have 2 different ways. I mean, they each have an antenna. This is one that I use at home. This is a little bit better of a radio, a lot more sensitive, does sideband and all that. But this actually came with this radio, but you can buy these for about $10 on Amazon. And all it is it's a wired dipole antenna. So you plug this into the port on that, you hang this up in the tree, and you're good to go. Well, this doesn't have a port for that, but I have an adapter where this will clip onto here.
That's pretty cool, huh?
Clip that onto there, and I mean, and I've just multiplied my signal. I mean, I'll be able to hear stuff all over the world just on this piece of wire. I mean, I bought a shortwave radio one time from a guy in Worcester when I was first starting out, and he had it up in his attic, and I kid you not, he had a coat hanger in the back, and he turned the thing on, and I mean, we were listening to Radio Moscow. I mean, granted, it's a high-powered station, but still, you don't need a lot of money to listen to stuff like that. So again, that's a portable one. This is portable too, but I don't think this is something I'd be putting in my bag. This radio here, this is 2 or 3 years old, but it's shortwave again, and it'll do sideband as well. What's nice about the sideband is you'll be able to pick up the ham radio operators with it, and possible military if they're using some of the, you know, real high frequencies, and you'll be able to tune that in. But it's also AM, FM. It's got digital processing. It stores a whole lot of memory. But again, this is something that you can get a lot of information from just so you know what's going on. So I mean, something like this is perfect. It's AM, FM, so you can get your local and then you can get long distance. I think this does AM as well. But again, this one here, the new version is probably about $300. And I think I paid about $200, $250, you know, 3, 4, 5 years ago when I bought that. But I haven't had to upgrade because it just works. So those are different advantages of using something like shortwave radio. So on the next page, I put some shortwave radio resources on there. You can actually listen to all of these countries now on the internet. So all you need to do is go to their websites and they stream it. You know, that's another option as long as we have internet connectivity. If we don't have internet connectivity, well. But if you want to get a feel for it and say, hey, you know, is this something I'm going to like? It's great. I actually, I got rid of my old one, but I have Craig's at my house. It's an old, I think it's a Hallicrafter, and it's a tube radio, and it's shortwave, and I can listen to everything on it. And you know what, if there's an EMP, well, I don't have to worry about it, because I just have to worry about powering it, because it's a tube set. So that's shortwave. The other one you mentioned, Clay, is scanners. Now this is a portable scanner. It doesn't do digital. Some of your bigger cities have gone to digital. State police is on digital to a certain extent. I don't think Worcester's gone digital yet. Worcester is 800 megahertz trunk.
They're switching over to digital shortly.
Yeah, yeah. This is just your basic analog signals, but I can listen to everything. I mean, I can hear, this is a portable one, but I have others at the house that I can listen. I hear North Brookfield, I hear West Brookfield, Spencer, everywhere around the area. And you really get a
I
good...
have a Cobra at home.
Yeah,
Right.
you can get a real good feel. A lot of times you'll find out what's going on before, everyone else knows. And having something small and compact like this that runs on batteries is great. So you'll be able to hear your local police departments and stuff like that. Again, I mean, if they're something like Worcester, where they're 800 megahertz, even state police was doing trunk for a while. I think they've gone mostly digital now. Radio like that is about $100. You want something that does 800 megahertz trunk, like the one I gave you. That's an old Radio Shack one. I mean, it's probably 4 or 5 years old, but again, it does, you have to program them with a cable again. This one here you do, but it's easier to plug them in. But 800 megahertz trunk, you have to do with a cable and software for the most part, because you're doing groups. But again, it's an easy way to find out what's going on in your area. And if you really want to know, put an antenna on your roof.
You know, I have an old scanner my grandfather had that has the crystals in it.
Yeah.
Are those things useless now, or?
No, that would probably be good for towns like North Brookfield, Spencer, West Brookfield.
What exactly are the crystals in it?
The crystals are just
Like tubes or something?
the frequencies. No, the crystals, it's actually a little, looks like a chiclet with two little pegs on the bottom.
Oh, it's like a diode thing or something?
Yeah, and you used to plug them in. I mean, years ago, when I was a kid, we had one of those. And you'd have to go up and we'd buy the crystals at Radio Shack, and I think they had $4 or $5 a crystal. But you could hear everything, on that frequency with it. But you were limited to the amount of crystals. If you had a 10-channel radio, you could only put 10 crystals in there, to hear it. So these you can put in, there's so many different bands that these cover right out of the box because of all of the
Yeah,
processes.
I was just curious if the thing was even any.
Yeah.
Keeping.
So that's another good way to get information. Also social media. And I know I was telling Martin about this a few weeks ago. Social media is a great way to get information. And I'm not necessarily talking Facebook, I'm talking Twitter. Now everybody's like, when people tweet and do all of this crap, yeah, they do. But if you listen or follow the right people, you'll get the information. I follow most of the guys that are freelance photographers, reporters, some of the different folks that do different things for the television stations themselves and radio stations. And 9 times out of 10, I'll see something before the news reports it. There was an accident, I think it was yesterday in Leicester, where it made the news, but a tree branch fell on the car. Well, yeah, I mean, I knew about that. It was right around the corner from my house, but I knew about that probably 4 hours before everyone else, because a photographer on the scene tweeted the picture and gave the information, unless the police were there. So it's a great way. Now, I don't use it to tweet about Kardashians or any of that bullshit. It's all, it's all my Twitter feed is news. I mean, some of it's CNN, some of it's AP, local news like WTHE, but a lot of it is all of these guys. And all of these guys have scanners, and that's how they get to these places, because these photographers take the pictures, especially the big fires, accidents, stuff like that, and they sell them to the news stations. And they'll tweet them out, and that's how they tweet them out, and then Fox will pick it up. So I think it's a great way to get information, providing there's internet, there's connectivity.
Well, like you said, you can get yourself a few people that you can rely on, that you're going to get good information from.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And I first had Twitter when it was the rage, and yeah, it was all right. It was stupid. I really wasn't into it for that stuff. Then I started listening to all of these folks that were on there that did this stuff, and I said it's a wealth of knowledge, and it's free. You sign up for an account, you start to follow these people, and that's all you get. I mean, it can get to be a pain in the ass if there's a big something big that's going on, because you'll get a ping from Fox, you'll get a ping from the AP, or you'll get a ping from the state police. Because I follow the state police, the Worcester police. most of your towns and municipalities are on there, so you'll get school delays and closures sent out by that before you get the robocall. But I mean, I just find that it's a good tool. I mean, you've got to use the tools that you're comfortable with and what you feel value in. I thought that was a pretty good, valuable tool.
Just to piggyback on that, working as a dispatch for the police department now, a lot of departments rely on social media to get information. We've actually had to respond to issues that weren't reported to us just because we found them on Twitter or we found them on Yik Yak or something like that. Different schools, I work for WPI, it's their department, but different schools monitor the different social medias just for reasons like that. And they end up, their information is coming from social media, whether it be Twitter. Twitter's got an add-on called TweetDeck, and I just put in WPI, and anybody that tweets anything with WPI, and it pops up. So if something's going on campus that we don't know about, that the students do, you know, that's something that we see. Worcester has a whole cybercrimes unit that does nothing other than monitor social media, just for reasons like that. So it's not just people that are doing it, it's actually municipalities that are getting their information from social media.
Yeah, so it's a good way to do it, and I mean, you always have your phone with you, and I mean, it's good for snowstorms, you know, whatever's going on locally. Again, you know, you have all your major news outlets for anything else, but I mean, these are the tools that I use. Like I said, they work for me. I have a lot of fun with the ham radio. The shortwave radio has been a hobby, and I just like it. The one thing I like about the shortwave radio is you get a different perspective. You know, we all talk about, well, CNN does their slant, Fox has their slant. It's interesting to listen to, like BBC or, you know, Brazilian radio or anybody, Spain, just their take on what's going on over here. It gives you a completely different perspective on, you know, what's going on here. So, and again, you can get a lot of good information from that as well. And a good way to get, when you get a shortwave radio, if you want to, there's a couple stations, there's time stations. There's one in Fort Collins, Colorado, and there's one up in Canada, I think it's CHU. And you can turn to certain frequencies and you can get a time check. And I usually do that to make sure that my antennas are working well. And I think it's 1,500 megahertz and 1,000. And it's just, you just hear beep, beep, beep in the top of the hour. It says, at the tone, the time will be, you know, 2300 UTC. And you can, so I know my radios are working. But then some of these you don't even have to, this here, you turn this on, you hit scan. It'll scan for about a minute or two. And what it's doing is it's pulling in all of the stations. So that way then when you're done, you just thumb through the stations and it picks up on the good frequencies, the strong frequencies, so you can listen to the radio. And
Is
again,
it like a short-term memory or something? You shut it?
yeah, and then you just wipe it. So if I was somewhere else, I could do that and I could, you know, get whatever's in the area. But again, I mean, these are all, most of this stuff is fairly cheap. I mean, you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on communication, but I mean, you accumulate it over the years as well. I mean, that's what I do. I didn't buy all of this stuff at once. It took me a while to get it. But these are the essentials that I think are good for getting information and sharing information. I mean, ideally, we want to be able to share information, but that may not always be the case. So knowing what to do, knowing how to get information, I say could be the difference between life and death. So, I mean, does anybody have any questions?
Gotta get our licenses.
Yeah, definitely get the license. It's not gonna, it won't take you long.